What's up, guys? Welcome to another podcast here at No One Gets Over, presented by the RTB Group. It's your boy, P. Fitz Robin. I'm here, you're here. Let's do this. So this week on NXT, in 205 Live, two of the most exciting hours in wrestling. If you're not watching it, like always, tune in. If you can't watch, if you're not part of the network, I get it. You can YouTube some videos of the matches or listen to our reviews, but it's really some exciting and good wrestling work that's going on these two brands. Especially in a week that, the main roster really wasn't, the main shows really weren't the most exciting. In fact, I think SmackDown may have gotten one of the worst ratings it has in a long time. It's not saying much. Most of the ratings now these days are pretty much shot. But we're going to go through, what happened this week on NXT and 205 Live, as well as answer some emails that I got from you guys. I have opened up a new thread on the website, so if you haven't checked that out yet, I'll post a link in the bottom. So it allows you guys to comment and start your own, little conversations on there where other people can interact. You guys can interact. Most definitely, you guys can interact in the, the comment section on the YouTube channel. But the only thing I ask, I don't care what you guys say about us here at, No One Gets Over, or RTB. We appreciate any feedback. You can say whatever you want. It's not going to offend me. It's not going to offend the other guys here. But just please keep, most comments about other posters, relatively clean. We don't want to be calling out or starting fights over the internet and keyboard heroes over here. But basically, NXT this week was good. I really liked the show. I think that we had some improvements as far as storylines. The one problem I have with NXT is that it's too short. I think really, like I said last week, that if they were to combine these two shows and just call it NXT, there's no need to be a separate brand for Cruiserweights. Just let them go to NXT and bring another, change that title, bring something older. They don't need to be, classified as lesser of an opponent or not up to par with the bigger guys. But it is what it is. I'm not the writers. I'm not, part of WWE by any means. My 2 cents is my 2 cents. But we get a nice starting match between the Forgotten Sons, Oni Larkin, Danny Burch, and Humberto Carrillo. This is starting to be a nice little feud. I was kind of critical on it last week as to why Larkin and Burch didn't use the chairs. But after seeing this match, there's so much talent here between both teams, and both teams bring something different to the table. Clearly, Forgotten Sons are an aesthetically pleasing team to watch. They have the right look. They have a real tag team / stable feel to them, which they should if they're going to be this biker gang. But Larkin, Burch, and Carrillo can really go. These three competitors alone could probably do well by themselves, but together we get a treat by watching them. We also get some backstory here as to why Burch and Larkin actually teamed up with Carrillo and saved him, and it basically comes that they're tired of seeing how the Forgotten Sons are just running through the NXT locker room, how they're dismantling other teams and really picking apart their opponents. And they felt that it was time that someone stood up to the big bullies in the Forgotten Sons. We really get the feeling, from watching this, if you watched the shows, Larkin and Carrillo have now been featured on 3 straight shows, which is great for them. I think that they deserve somewhat of a push if that's what they're getting. They're very entertaining to watch. Carrillo, it's kind of weird when he comes out sometimes because he has a different look at NXT, but I get it. If I was going to do that, I would try as many looks as I could on different brands, see what really is working, especially when you're on that quote-unquote developmental path of these, non-main roster shows. But early on, the clear advantage, they're really trying to push the point that the Forgotten Sons are an established team, that they all work very well together. But with that said, even though they have the apparent size advantage on Larkin, Burch, and Carrillo, the athleticism that those three bring to this match really made this match turn up another notch. That maybe without them, this would have been just a throwaway match. the match ends up ending when the Forgotten Sons get a pinfall over Danny Burch. I think that's the right way to end that. I think that if Lorcan or Carrillo took the pinfall, as those are the two higher profile members of that team right now, as far as the last 2 weeks go, as them being featured, it would have maybe kind of put a little bit of rails on their movement and their momentum. But overall, it was a good match. Nothing to really write home about, but nothing to throw away either. It's something that I hope they keep developing, and I hope this becomes a longer feud than some of the other feuds that we see in WWE. A real interesting moment. We get to see a little bit behind in the Performance Center. Most things that happen outside of the arena, WWE does a good job of hiding that, and they don't want people to see what's going on backstage. But we end up getting Mia Kim and Bianca Belair in the Performance Center having an argument, which, obviously I'm going to assume that was, written, and that's not, a shoot, that's just a work. But they played it off like it was a shoot, and I actually enjoyed it. I'm not a huge fan of Mia Kim. I think that she's slower on the mic, and she's kind of monotone when she talks, and I don't get a real sense of enthusiasm from her, or a sense that it seems like, and I don't know if this is how she wants to portray her character, but it seems like she's almost going through motions, and it seems like she's mostly reading off scripts, and you can kind of tell. But we got to see that between this argument, I mean, clearly Bianca Belair is the better talker. I would say better in the ring as well. But Mia Kim, this could be a good feud for her, besides the Shayna Baszler feud that was teased, because these are two, I don't want to say mid-card women's wrestlers, but these are two mid-card women's wrestlers as far as what NXT is seeing right now and who they're pushing, and this could really elevate both of them up to that top area, that top 5 spot, or that top 3 spot. The second match of the night, we get Mansoor versus Donovan Dijakovic, or Dijak as I saw him in NEW. Mansoor, I mean, I can assume he's probably not the tallest guys, but he's by no means my size or shorter. But Dijak is just a very large human, and he's has all the muscle in the back. He may not seem the most physically sized big man, but man, at one point he tossed him with such ease over that top rope and into the barricade. I almost thought that Mansoor was going to land on the barricade. That's how hard he threw him and how far he literally threw him. But good job on Mansoor. I like this kid. It goes on beyond, besides a little shout out to Dragon Ball with the Majin logo on his pants. But I really like it. I think that he showed us that he could be a top competitor probably in the next year. I'd say he's got to kind of battle up in the next year, but he got some good face heat. The crowd was chanting for him. But Dijak, I mean, this guy's going to be moving forwards. He ends up hitting an inverted GTS, and that ends the match. And man, that just looked painful, but I know that's how it's supposed to look, and that was great. He, as such a big man, the way that he picked him up with ease, that move just looks so much more intimidating. After the match, we get Dijak in the ring. He ends up tossing Mansoor out of the ring again, so it's just him standing alone. And we get the Velveteen Dream, who gets wheeled out on his, purple couch. And we get a nice promo that was cut on Dijak. We get the National Dream Anthem. And besides Velveteen's singing abilities, this was great. This is in reaction to Dijak saying that he wants a shot at that North American title. And I hope, as much as he doesn't want to, I hope Velveteen stays in NXT, because his character right now is probably top 5 in all of WWE as most entertaining and most well-rounded, put-together character. The gimmick really is suiting, and I can tell that this is coming to ease with him, and that's the best kind of gimmicks for a wrestler. The whole thing was played perfectly, and he doesn't even let Dijak really get a word in. I don't think he said one word throughout the whole part. But but just that era that whenever a dream is out there, you know something great is about to happen. And this was really one of those times. I can't wait to see this match between the two. I think both are unbelievable athletes. They both are bigger competitors. I think this is going to be one of those matches that going into it, some people are really hyped about, some people could really care less. But I think once the match happens, we're going to look back at this match in the next year, and it's going to be one of those matches that is, top 10 in all of WWE. The final match, or actually, I'm sorry, we end up getting the final match, and Kushida is about to make his appearance, and we get a backstage segment, and it's Undisputed Era. Everything seems to be fine with Undisputed Era. I mean, they're all laughing and joking, talking about how Johnny Gargano is the luckiest man in all of NXT, if not WWE, and Roger cuts a nice promo on him. The leader, Adam Cole, ends up cutting a promo, and at one point he says, Roddy really dropped the ball in his match against Gargano, which, tensions are already tight between them, even if they want to appear that they're fine. And it ends up making Roddy leave. He just walks away and says, "Are you kidding me?" And, clearly we know that, Adam Cole didn't look like he meant to do it, but he cost Roddy that match. Bobby Fish ends up going after him, says he's going to try to get him back. And, has some words for Adam Cole, saying, like, why would you say that? Adam Cole's claiming it's just a joke. What's the matter? A grown man can't take a joke, let alone a loss. There's some dividing lines that are being set here for Undisputed Era. I mean, it looks like, from all we can see, is that Bobby Fish and Roddy Strong are going to be on one side, and then Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole are on the other side. Kyle O'Reilly was defending his leader in Adam Cole, saying, what's the matter? I knew it was a joke. Everyone knew it was a joke. I don't know why he's being so uptight about it. I don't want to see him break up, but if this is how they're going to do it, maybe take a play out of the NWO book where you got, dividing factions within the one faction. And I think if it's done right, and I think Triple H will do it right, this is going to be something that will be good, and we could put some eyes on some other up-and-coming talent in that main event spot, or we can get a triple threat where we have Strong versus Gargano versus Adam Cole. And if they play it out right, and if everything goes well, maybe we'll see Ciampa in that mix later in the year when he comes back from his surgery. We did get some news about a month ago that he was working out again, light rehab. And, I hope him all the best. Another guy that I saw in NEW, and he had one of the best matches against Mike Bennett in a slow motion match in the middle of the ring. And when I say slow motion, I mean it was unbelievable. Just the feat of strength that they were doing to do these moves in slow motion was really something to be seen. But we cut back to the ring and we get Ono versus Kushida. We get, the Ono entrance, and Cassius Ono. Watching him as Chris Hero was great. I think he has so much to give in the wrestling world, but he definitely seems like a guy that struggled with staying fit. Never the most ripped, wrestler or aesthetically, pleasing wrestler. But man, has he let himself go. He could really go, if he were to go away, and if NXT and Triple H were to say, hey, listen, we're going to take you off matches for a while. We need you to get in shape. One, for his health. Two, he could sell a lot better if he lost probably about 20 pounds. He doesn't need to be ripped or skinny or anything. He just seems larger he seems larger every time we see him on TV. And I know it's a hard thing to do. A lot of people struggle with that. But he has all the ability, if he's back in NXT in Orlando at the Performance Center, to really work out on these. We get the Kushida entrance, and I'm real hyped about this guy. I mean, he was great, watching him in Japan in the junior heavyweights. And I think that out of almost all the Japanese wrestlers, with the exception of Shinsuke, He really is going to hopefully bring that third dimensional, aspect to this, where he's not just a great strong style wrestler or a great wrestler in the ring. He may not be able to cut a great promo, depending on any barriers, or I don't know how well he speaks English, but as far as his character and development, he seems to have that already. And I like that, one, I'm a big fan of Back to the Future, but I like that whole aspect that they're really playing off of this. And trust me, the commentators made it clear as day that that's what they're going for. He comes out dressed as Marty McFly. Already, that's a good move. I like that. Let him stand out. Let him really be different than the other wrestlers. But very subtly, if you look on his Titantron, he has a countdown timer. And his packaging is very much like Millennial Man Y2J. And, with Jericho no longer in the company, even though he made this style famous where you have, the code written and, the blue screen type deals, Kushida could really take this and run with it, because he's not having Jericho to stop him at this point. Not that I think Jericho really would have. He seems like a pretty open guy to, getting younger guys over and stuff. But not saying he's copying Jericho's entrance by any means. But I like that. I think that now, without that, those burdens of trying to copy a main roster star or being too similar to a main roster star with their entrance, because even though a lot of times entrances are cut off on screen, it is an important thing for wrestlers. It really adds another layer to a wrestler for really trying to get that persona over, because sometimes you don't have time to cut a promo, or you're not giving every opportunity to go ahead and really show everything you have to the crowd. But with your entrance that you're going to be coming out, even to a live crowd, if it's not always on TV, you can actually do some storytelling in that, and some background on your character. I think Kushida did it great. Unfortunately, Ono is a big guy, not just, wide-wise, but tall-wise, and Kushida looks to be dwarfing to him. Ono looks like Big Show, coming out to Ray. The size difference isn't that great, but that's what it reminded me of. Ono extends his hand. Kushida extends his hand, to Ono, and Ono ends up kicking the hand away. And then really we get a lot of rest holds and mat wrestling in the beginning. I don't know if this was because of Ono being, blown up early, or fear, if you will, but it did add a little bit. We got to see a lot from Kushida, and I think that's what we need to see in a debut like this. Kind of a scary moment at one point. Ono ends up going on his knee, extends his hand, asking for that handshake, saying he accepts. He sees now what the hype's about, which leads into an Irish whip after Kushida grabs the hand, and Ono ends up hitting him with a pretty stiff kick, and I believe Kushida may have broken his nose in this match. At one point, the camera zoomed in on it. He's got a little bit of blood, comes up, gets slammed down on the ground right on his face again, and when he breathes, a whole bunch of blood shoots out. Not like the Joey Mercury, nose almost torn off his face kind of blood, but enough to be noticed. And maybe not maybe not the best thing or best hopes, but, injuring a big talent star coming in right off his first match, but it looked great. Kushida ends up getting the win after a hoverboard lock, and it was really a very strong outing for him, especially for the first time he's going to be wrestling on NXT. And NXT ends, or closes, with basically commentary just singing his praises on the match. A lot of Back to the Future references. I don't think this will ever work on main, as far as I think that's a lawsuit waiting to happen if they keep quoting the movie like that. But on NXT, I'm pretty sure they could do it, especially with the relationship that Full Sail and has with probably Universal Studios and Disney and stuff. I think now Disney owns Universal. But overall, not as good of NXT as last week, but definitely push some stories forward, and I'm okay with that. Every week doesn't need to be full of, as some other people would say, 5-star matches or 5-star feuds, but I think that when you have a weekly show, you need to have these filler storylines, and that only prolongs the show but gets viewers into wanting to be invested in what's going on, because you could have, realistically, you could have every wrestler fight every wrestler and be done in a year, and then you have to always find a whole nother batch of wrestlers, which is what kind of WWE does right now. But I like that NXT is going back to an older style where they're really focusing on some storylines, and even if they're subtle moments where these stars are shining on the show, we're getting to an end point, and there's a clear direction. And I know that changes all the time with Vince wanting to call people up or necessity when someone gets injured. But the rosters on all shows are so large right now, this really shouldn't be a problem anymore. It's not like back in the day when you had maybe 5 top stars between both shows, and then you had a roster of 20 people on each show, and then you had developmentals or OVW or FC-Dub, and they weren't really televised and weren't on the network. There was no such thing as a network. You know, they're in local broadcastings, but we don't really, I mean, it's so tough. Like, let these stories finish at least some. There's no need to have, you know, superstars called up right away in these high-profile feuds and then drop their feuds that they were in and something that's on your network that you are broadcasting every week, and then they're scrambling to rewrite stuff, or stuff's already pre-recorded because, you know, NXT is, you know, a recorded show. They, you know, it's not live. So you end up having congruent storylines that may not line up. You know, for example, this is War Raiders and the Viking Raiders, as well as DIY on the main roster, but then the feud that's going on in NXT between Gargano and Ciampa. You know, it really dilutes what's going on and confuses maybe an average fan that may be tuning into NXT for the first time, and then all of a sudden they see this guy that they just saw teaming up on main roster, and they're all buddies, and then they're going at each other's throats in NXT. Or in the case of, you know, War Machine, War Raiders, Viking Raiders, that they have completely different names. You're like, wait a minute, I just saw these guys last week, and they're called the Viking Raiders. Why now they call it War Raiders? Why is their name Hanson and Rowe instead of Ivar and whatever the other one is? Oh well. We end up getting 205 Live. There's an opening segment where we get to see the champ, Tony Nese, announcing that he's going to be having... he's going to be a fighting champ. We did see him, you know, defend his title against Buddy Murphy like 2 days after Mania. But he's going to be a fighting champ, and we're going to get Tony Nese versus Drew Gulak tonight. And Drew ends up on screen telling, you know, the crowd that he's beaten Tony Nese every time they've wrestled, except for maybe one time, and that was just an outlier. Says even though maybe most of the fans aren't going to know what an outlier is, but statistically an outlier is thrown away. You know, they're just not really a one-off occasion. You know, it doesn't skew the numbers so much. But the first match we get Lucha House Party versus the Singh Brothers. So apparently the Superstar Shakeup is still well in effect, because the Singh Brothers have now been brought back to 205 Live. I don't know if that has anything to do with gender. I'm assuming they're probably going to be on both shows, but I don't think they're going to wrestle on main. But they're brought back to 205 Live. They come out, and man, the one they got pink and black on for the Hart family, the Hart Foundation. But they come out saying that they're the only undefeated tag team left in 205 Live. They did win their first match on 205 Live, I believe, on the opening show of 205 Live, but then they were brought to main right afterwards. But they come saying that they spent their time traveling the world, wrestling against the best. They named Roman Reigns, Randy Orton, and AJ Styles. And, man, these guys, they're entertaining. You know, coming out and doing the Roman Superman punch, or coming out and doing the Orton or the AJ Styles. I mean, that's how you get over. Draw that cheap heat. Get it. The crowd loved it. For a crowd that usually isn't invested into 205 Live, they have a main roster show either coming on right after, or they just sat through a 2-hour show. They love the beginning segment of this. And Lucha House Party, you know, Grand Malik versus Lince Dorado, is a great way for them to come in. You know, you have two teams do different styles. Singh Brothers kind of more of an old school style. Bret Hart's real high on these guys. He likes them. And then you have the lucha style, lucha house party. And it was entertaining to see how Lucha House Party was going to be affected from those matches against Viking Raiders. Of course, there is no psychological problems with that. WWE doesn't usually think that deep, but there's a couple of little things that happened in this match that I really liked. At one point, there was a pin on Lindsay, but his hand was underneath the rope. Now, if you remember back in the day, you didn't have to grab the rope to break up a pinfall. You had to be under the rope, on the rope, or you lift your shoulder up. And the ref ends up counting and says, nope, he's under the rope. Nope, he's under the rope. I know that there was some heat backstage for refs. The ref in the main event of WrestleMania was fined for having to restart the count, or that Ronda counted too fast, Ronda's shoulder wasn't completely down. And Vince really wants to go ahead and legitimize what the refs are doing, and I think this is a great way to do it. If you've really paid attention to the refs in the last couple of weeks, they're really checking to make sure their shoulders are down, they're making sure their rope breaks are down, as well as what happened on Monday night when Samoa Joe was right next to the rope and somehow couldn't grab it or didn't think of putting his arm underneath it. This is a good segment for that, because now it shows that, yes, this is what he could have done, and this is what he probably should have done, and then they could have maybe moved him more into the ring, or really hold some guys accountable for being ring awareness. Referees have to do what they can, and it's a tough job. It's like I said, they don't get enough credit what's going on in WWE in the grand scheme of things. They really are coordinating the match along with the wrestlers, but they have to draw that fine line of what the match outcome is supposed to be and how we get there. Because if someone's supposed to win and the time is running out, you can't ruin the whole show because one guy is in the right place, but you need to hold those wrestlers accountable, and I think this is a way to do that. Really put it more on them, and then the ref really doing their job, legitimize, really brings them and holds them accountable and really makes it a legit thing. We end up getting stereo super kicks hit on Lindsay Dorado. Grand Malik tagged in. He, walks the rope a little old school into a springboard elbow drop. And then right before that, there was the blind tag by Lindsay Dorado, who ends up ending the match by hitting a shooting star press. Great match, a lucha style match, as far as you have a lucha tag team in there, but good, entertaining match. I liked it. I hope that the Singh brothers stay, and I hope that they're going to play a big role. I think they're very entertaining to watch. I think they bring something different to 205 Live. We know that WWE is really focusing in on tag teams. That was kind of their biggest mark, I guess, their biggest red mark on their resume there, that for a while the tag division was crap, and that was one thing that the Young Bucks even said, and when they were asked, when they were offered to come over, WWE guaranteed them that they were going to be putting a bigger focus on tag team wrestling. And if you haven't noticed, we see a bunch of tag team matches now throughout all of WWE, in some that don't really make any sense, but it's a good way to get a lot of wrestlers in on the match. I'm not a big fan of four-corner tag matches. I think they're pretty fucking stupid, because if you don't want to lose the match, just stay in the ring the whole time, or have your team stay in the ring the whole time. But it was a good match. I like it. I think 205 Live, if they're going to make this legitimate like NXT, you need to have more than one title or a bigger brand. Again, that's why I think they should combine the two shows, and then you could really have some of these great cruiserweight tag teams fighting for that NXT tag titles. But afterwards, we get a backstage segment. Drake Maverick's interviewing Humberto Carrillo. Now, again, 4 shows in a row he's been featured on. He's interrupted by Jack Gallagher, who is back. He informs Maverick that he is still unable to compete, but he will be back in 2 weeks at the show in England. He ends up focusing his attention to Carrillo, Gallagher that is, and Gallagher says, you know what, sorry that didn't work out, but I like what you did to Gulak last week, and I appreciate it. So clearly, there's a storyline that's being brought here. I like that Drake's somewhat involved. I know he's supposed to be the GM, and recently there was an experiment to put him back with EC3. Vince hated the idea. I don't know why. Those guys are money in TNA. They're very entertaining, and Rockstar Spud, Drake Maverick, he is a great wrestler and an established wrestler. He's been around the world, on the indies and in TNA, but he really is a good wrestler. Two, he's a good talker, and Vince shot the character in the foot by making him piss himself on TV. I mean, I know Vince pissed himself, but the difference is that Vince was an already established character in WWE and had this persona of being the boss and the man's man, and then you have Drake Maverick, and he pisses himself because he's so scared. I don't know, but hopefully something good happens for Rockstar Spud. I'd like to see him compete. I think he's really fun to watch. Looks like we're going to get next the Brian Kendrick match. He starts making his way to the ring. I love Kendrick. Spanky. Great wrestler. He was taught by Shawn Michaels. Very underrated wrestler. He really was in a time where the big man was dominant. And I think that if he were to be debuting in the last probably 5 years, he would be one of the biggest stars in WWE. But when he's making his way down the ring, Mike Kanellis or Mike Bennett comes out, attacks him, and then Akira Tozawa comes out and saves his friend. We get a little brawl outside the ring, and it's actually broken up by Drake Maverick. You see Drake grabbing Tozawa and holding him back as Kanellis makes his way into the crowd to escape. It's also later announced that next week we're going to get a no disqualification match between Kanellis and Tozawa. Good. I like seeing Bennett wrestle. Was always a big fan of him. I say this every week. He deserves so much more. He's got a great look. He had his demons, but what a great story that would be PR-wise to really bring the company up a little bit, especially after what's going on where you have this terrible PR between the Luke Harper situation, terrible PR between the Undertaker situation. You have Dark Side of the Ring coming out and really focusing in on some of the bad aspects of wrestling and some of the deaths that have happened in wrestling from, related substance abuses and other factors. But you have a guy like Kanellis who clearly had a problem, brought it public, got himself clean, and now has battled his demons. And for all we see, it looks like he's overcome a lot of them. And man, he looks like $1,000,000. I don't know why they didn't run with this more. I know that they try to tread this line between reality and script, and that this is one that they should have gone with the reality situation. And I said it before, he would have been great if he started in NXT and built his brand up a little bit for a crowd that maybe not have known him instead of jumping right to main roster. But his wife was a main star. Maria's great. I like her as a manager. I think she's pretty funny and entertaining. But now would have been, or probably about 5 months ago, would have been the time to really push him again on main roster and have him really, they could have shown throughout his build the struggle he was having, and now he's overcoming it and his progress through it. They could have done it through vignettes. They could have done it in the ring. They could have built kind of a buzz around him, and I think a lot of people would have taken hold of that. I mean, I think he's a great heel, but that would have been a great face way to get him over. A lot of people would have sank their teeth in and related to that. The main event of the match, or the 205 Live, is Drew Gulak versus Tony Nese. While I was watching this match, my first thoughts was, I'm going to have a hard time writing some of this for the actual write-up, because I don't think I can articulate how good of a match this actually was. There's a lot of chain wrestling, a lot of mat work that was done that doesn't translate very well, for me at least, on paper. But you have Gulak, who's one of the best submission wrestlers, and you have Tony Nese, who's just, as they say, the premier athlete. The guy is just an athlete in general. He can pretty much do anything. And this was a technical bout between the two. There wasn't a whole lot of, snapshot moments. Back in the day, you used to see the flash on the cameras flutter, and this wasn't that kind of match, and it didn't need to be. This match became in the fold because Arya Daivari, I can't talk tonight. Arya Daivari ended up pretty much calling out Tony, saying he's not a fighting champion. Good mind game by Daivari, because now before their match, he's hoping that Tony Nese will be somewhat worn down, maybe not 100%. And what a better guy to do that with than Gulak, because Gulak, the submission specialist, can break someone down. And after a match with Gulak, I would really think that most wrestlers, story-wise and in reality, they're probably looking at the rest of their matches in the near future is a little bit different. He brings a lot to the table, and I like Gulak as a character. And Nice, I like Nice. I think his story is good. He's definitely fun to watch in the ring. I don't know how well he's going to keep carrying this title. I think a lot of the fans like him, but again, because they're in the front of the SmackDown audience, that a lot of younger people or a lot of fans that may be just casual and it's just in their area and something to do that week might not be as invested in him as some of the viewers at home. A lot of good moments in this match. One, there was a moonsault that Nice ended up overshooting. I like now that commentary is kind of trying to play these overshoots and these maybe botches. They are botches, but they're not saying that on commentary, that they may not have gotten all of it. You hear that all the time. I even though it may be overused, I like that term. Back in the day, I remember watching where there would be a super kick that was nowhere near someone, or a moonsault where the guy completely overshot him, and they get the 3 count, and you're like, he didn't even hit him. And you had JR and King, granted, they're being told what to say in most cases, but really just trying to sell as much as they can. And again, it's harder with more cameras because we get more of that, but I think that was a good point that they did on commentary, and I think it was Nigel McGuinness that brought it up. I really like him on commentary. I think he's a very good commentator. He really brings a kind of seriousness to there and legitimacy to the commentary booth, even though they had Otunga this week, Todd Phillips, I believe it was, and Aiden English. We get a little scuffle outside the ring, and again, I don't think articulating this on paper doesn't come out very well, but we have a nice psychological moment here where they get to about a 5 count, and Gulak makes his way into the ring, and Nice pulls him back out to restart the count, and it ends up going where Nice hits a beautiful vertical suplex on Gulak right on the mat outside, and the count goes up to 8, and then both competitors go back in the ring. Little things like that can really add to a match where you can see that Nice could have probably brought him in the ring and continued beating him up, but he wanted to do something that hurt, wanted to get something that could possibly give him a better advantage when they're back in the ring, especially against a guy as technically sound as Drew Gulak. Nice ends up kicking out after Gulak hits a beautiful top rope shoulder press to the gut, or knee to the gut. Oh, we don't see Gulak go to the top rope very often, but this, even though there wasn't a lot, and I said earlier that this would have been on a high-profile match, one of those shutter moments where the cameras are going crazy, because it looked absolutely beautiful on screen. After that, Nice ends up trying to go for a 450 splash. Gulak evades. Nice ends up getting stuck in the Gulak, and Nice ends up having to basically turns him over, causing both shoulders of Gulak to go down, and we get a 2 count, which ends up breaking up the hold. Tony Nice ends up getting the win after a running Nice, after a beautiful German suplex right into the lower turnbuckle. Again, like I said, this was a mat match, and this was a great mat match. Very fun to watch live, very fun to see, just all the little nuances that were going on in this match. And 205 Live ends with Tony Nice standing tall, holding that title. We get a shot of Daivari backstage. Throughout the match, watching it, laughing, really plotting and watching his scheme unfold. And he knows that Tony Nice probably isn't going to be 100% after this match. And I really like that. Add that third dimension to the characters. And I think Daivari is a great heel. I like his look backstage better than his in-ring look. He really played it off, almost to that Ric Flair style where he's very high profile and he has his own locker room. He's dressed in the Versace clothes and he's got the the gold chain. He's got the big screen in his locker room. Great presentation throughout the show. I really liked it. Unfortunately, I don't think it was one of the best weeks for NXT and 205 Live as far as most exciting, but overall, I would say it's better than probably both main shows, and especially with only having an hour long to do that, we don't get a lot of matches that we get to see. So some emails I got from you guys. You know, well, we'll start with the elephant in the room, Lio Rush. So Lio has openly said, he's not happy, and I get it. At first glance, it seemed that all the reports were saying that he may be having some heat backstage. It may be a burden. He actually did an interview, and I'm going to give credit to Going in Raw. I know they heard it, I think, from Ringside or one of the other wrestling news stations. I heard it from them. I am a fan of their podcast. I do watch it every day that it comes out. But they, told the story that I listened to, and what it seems like is that, Leo's upset with maybe the hazing that goes on. He says it's not a good look for a company where you have a clearly smaller young black man, bringing in other superstars' bags into the hotels, that he's barely making any money, having to pay for his own hotel rooms, his own rental cars 5 days a week on a very small salary. I know that Vince has offered him a 5-year contract, and I think they said it was for $500,000. I don't know if that was $500,000 each year or $500,000 cumulative over 5 years. I'm gonna assume it was probably $500,000 over 5 years, which for any normal person, $100,000 a year, that's pretty good money. For these wrestlers though that are independent contractors and have to pay for their own hotel rooms and their own, sometimes their own rental cars and stuff. And for a guy like Lio Rush, which all accounts are showing are really he's bringing his family with him. He's probably not going to be rooming with another wrestler. He's not going to be riding with other wrestlers. And those are things that is an old school way. One, to save money, but two, it's also a way to create some good bonds with other wrestlers and really brings your stock up in the locker room. I know that he's had problems in the locker room. He's been kicked out of the locker room multiple times. Again, this is from the rumor and innuendo that we hear. A little shout out to you, Conrad. But really it's unfortunate because I really like seeing him wrestle and I can understand his frustrations. I don't know if he has the best way to articulate this, as far as he's said that there's some people that are in the WWE officials that work for Ring of Honor that never liked him in Ring of Honor and trying to push him out now. Things like that aren't probably good to say about the person that's paying your checks. But hey, there are options now. He has at one point asked for his release, or said, if you're not going to do anything with me, just release me then. It's tough because as a fan, he's very entertaining to watch. I don't know. I'm not there. I don't see what's going on backstage. But if what we're hearing has somewhat truth to it, which I believe it does, you really take these from both sides and try to pick out through the weeds what's going on. It sucks because I think he could be a lot bigger than he is. I know that a lot of his frustration is that he's not being compensated for the Bobby Lashley shirts that have his slogans on it. And it has nothing to do with Bobby Lashley, but that has to do with basically contracts that WWE writes for these wrestlers. It's been said, and I believe Jericho was the one that pointed out, a lot of these contracts don't have a set number or percentage for merchandise sales or, house draws or pay-per-view percentages. They don't have pay-per-views anymore. It's basically whatever Vince feels you did, you get paid. You may get paid extra. And, I believe on one of the podcasts that Jericho did, he talked about that, where one day he got a check and he didn't think that was right. And he went over to Vince, and Vince ended up, changing the check or wrote him another check. We heard stories back in the day with the Click where, Kevin Nash would see, the Click was really the first people to really talk about it, each other's pay, because they were such close friends. But basically, where Shawn Michaels would get paid a little bit more, and he may not even have had a match. But yet Kevin Nash, who had a match on the show, got, just for numbers, we'll say Shawn got paid an extra $60,000. but Kevin Nash gets paid $40,000. Well, he actually did the work. He was in the match. He's the one that wrestled. Shawn was just out there and came in for stand ringside. So, a lot of these things are not written. It's not set in stone. These guys really trying to work their ass off to get somewhere. It's unfortunate. I hope everything works out for Leo. I think maybe some of that is also what's happening with Sasha. We don't really hear a lot. We hear that she's upset with creative, that she wanted a longer title reign. I think she's probably making better money than a lot of other wrestlers. But, it's all about quality in your brand. If you're going to be an independent contractor in any other part of the world or for any other company in the world, your name sticks with you. And even though you may have a contract to do, a job somewhere, if you do a crappy job and your name is tarnished, you're going to have a hard time getting other lines of work. With that said, and a lot of other, aspects of the world and the, working world, if you're an independent contractor, you can take other jobs while you're doing this independent contract for this specific company. WWE doesn't work like that. Once you're signed to this contract, you're exclusive to WWE. So in the case of like Luke Harper and maybe Leo, maybe that's the way he's feeling it, if they tarnish his name enough, other companies aren't going to want him. And we kind of see that with Enzo and Big Cass XO. They didn't have done other things. They have tarnished their name, but you can see the repercussions of when you get that black mark on, or that red mark on your resume. You worked for WWE and you were a problem for them, and then you have a hard time getting signed to other shows or other promotions. But some other questions I had from you guys. I'm trying to get some of the other guys on the pod. I don't have any interviews for any wrestlers lined up. I've been putting out some feelers with some local guys. I'm sure you guys, everyone wants to hear from John Cena on the podcast. Well, unfortunately, I don't have pull like that, nor do I have that kind of money right now to, offer them to these guys to come out in here. But for any of you listeners that may be an up-and-coming wrestler or want to be a wrestler or have some thoughts, if you guys write on the threads, comment or reach out to me. If you have something you want to say or you want a shout out for something, or you have I will give you guys all the credit for it. If you guys want to come on here and talk about something, we can try to set something up. If you just want to talk and your guy's sitting in your mom's basement like I am, I might not have you on here. I kind of want some prestigeness to this, but no, I mean, I'm here for you guys. I want to cover as much as I can for you guys. If you guys have any, question or anything, you can, send us, write it up on the website. No One Gets Over. If you like something, let us know. Like and subscribe. It's pretty much all I got for this podcast for this week. I'm gonna be doing a Money in the Bank podcast because I will be there live. I probably won't do a Saudi show on. I don't watch a Saudi show. I kind of refuse to. I'll watch some of the matches, whatever pops up on my Instagram. But besides that, I'll be doing podcasts or reviews for all the major shows on WWE, as well as AEW. Double or Nothing is coming up at the end of the month. I'm pretty excited about it. I unfortunately couldn't get tickets to it, but if someone wants to give me a ticket, I'll be more than happy to take it. One other thing that I actually popped up before I started this, I saw a post from Jericho, and Jericho's never been known to hold his tongue. He's made it this far in the business because he does speak his mind, and this is about the Lio Rush situation. He says that he's never once asked a younger or junior star to hold his bags, but bad-mouthing the veterans isn't the way to do it. I don't know so much if that's what Leo is doing. I think he's a very proud man, and I think he really wants people to know that he can be a star, and I think he can be. But I don't, with that said, if someone that has more experience than you in a company or somewhere else is giving you advice, whether you agree to it or not, it's always good to listen to it until you have that footing to say something back. And I don't think Leo has that footing just yet. In WWE in general, as we've seen with other wrestlers and the politicking that goes on there, having the boys on your back is almost as good as having Vince on your back. We had a lot of locker room leaders, and some people that thought they were locker room leaders and may not have been. A good example of this was a CM Punk. He always wanted to be a locker room leader, and from what we hear, and I don't know how much of this is propaganda by WWE to tarnish his name, but some people may not have taken him as seriously, that maybe he was too serious as a locker room leader, that people weren't really listening to him. And then we see guys like The Miz, who was kicked out of the locker room by Chris Benoit back in the day, who has now legitimately become a locker room leader, and you can tell that he really has this aura and this persona that he wants to carry out, and this image of what a superstar should be and how they should carry themselves. I know that the character on TV doesn't always have to have that, but if you look at everything he does outside the ring, he really does live and breathe this company. He does a good job of keeping separate but still the same as far as what's happening behind the stage and what he's presenting to the audience outside of the ring. So as always, check us out. Like I said, check out the new website, the new option. It's called RTB Lite. It's free form. For now, it's automatic posting. I'm not reviewing anything for there. I don't have to approve anything. So if you guys keep everything pretty much, like I said, as long as you're not trying to be keyboard heroes, calling out other users, I'm okay with whatever you guys say, whatever you feel. This is unlike any other place that you guys have ever been. This is really something that was created by wrestling fans for wrestling fans, on a segment where you don't have to worry about what maybe someone else is saying as far as limitations. I know that there's Reddit threads and other social media threads and groups and Facebook and stuff. I'm really trying to accumulate or get all these kind of fans and this interaction to one place for you guys. I think that I think it is a great platform, and I really want to hear from you guys. I want to see what some of your thoughts are. As always, remember, no one ever gets over, and no free plugs.